Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Kicking It with Cal. I'm your host, Cal Denicky, and today we have a very, very special guest, Miss Aaliyah Moscas Marcelia,
Yes.
who's checking in from the frigid Midwest and frigid temperatures. So, Aaliyah, how have you been?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I wanted to have you on today to talk a little bit about teaching middle school, our careers, also motherhood and having a daughter. And you and I went to school 8 years ago back at Illinois State. We were getting our education degrees, and now it feels like we've blinked and we're already like deep
Yeah,
into our career.
8 years in, we're kind of vets at this point. It feels like,
We
yeah.
felt like babies, and at this point, we're there. So I wanted to ask, you've been teaching middle school for 8 years. How would you describe your experience if someone asked you, what is your job like on a daily basis?
I would say for sure it's a whirlwind. I feel like is the it's chaos. Sometimes I teach seventh grade, so I call it the middle child of the middle school. We're just, in that awkward zone, but I love it because I'm kind of an awkward individual as well. So, yeah, I would say every day is new. Every day is a different experience. Like we have our routines, but yeah, there's really never a dull moment, even when you want one. I would say.
And when you tell people you teach middle school,
Mhm.
I know you've experienced the same thing with me, which is you must have patience.
Yeah.
God bless
God bless
you.
you. Thank you for
I,
your service.
I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
And if we had a dime for every time we've been asked that, I think we
Yeah.
wouldn't be teaching because we'd be pretty set on money.
Yeah, no, we would be set for sure. Yeah, people definitely are surprised because I think people initially think I'm an elementary school teacher, just by my energy, I guess. But yeah, they're like, oh, middle school, I was such a little turd in middle school. I'm like, yeah, they're still turds. So yeah.
Um, I'm gonna do something real quick because I forgot to put do not disturb on. So I think if like someone were to FaceTime me or text me, it
Oh,
would
it'll
pop
like
up in
jump
the
in. Yeah.
recording. So I'm gonna switch that real quick.
Okay.
Um,
My window looks all bogus. Oh, let's straighten it out. You want, I can like jump on Nova's trampoline the whole time. All right.
Okay. So going to school together
Mm-hmm.
back at Illinois State, we had a very well-known program for education that gave us good jobs. Do you feel like college prepared you for what was to come in the classroom?
I think it prepared me for. Hmm, I don't think it prepared me for necessarily classroom management. I would say. I think that's definitely something I'm still working on. I think I still have days where I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing this right at all. Especially because I have ADHD, like a lot of them do. So I feel like sometimes we're all just like, whoa, But I would say college definitely helped me with kind of checking through, making so many sub plans. Or not sub plans. Oh my gosh, lesson plans. Can you tell?
Mhm.
That's on my mind. But making so many lesson plans, I feel like it's kind of, I don't make lesson plans like that anymore, but I just naturally kind of check through those things, modifications and like, okay, well, what materials am I going to have and that kind of stuff. So I feel like that helped me. Um, and just some of like learning about development and child development and things like that. But yeah, classroom management, I think that just kind of has to come from the classroom. Yeah.
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 I feel like when we were in school taking the classes, I didn't necessarily love learning about all of the content-based material and
Yeah.
everything. And then when we did get those experiences to hop inside the classroom, that's when I really felt like I was thriving and
Yeah.
actually learning how to deal with these small humans who feel grown.
They feel
And
from. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I I think that's one of the coolest parts about the job is getting to learn that each individual class is its own unique entity. And
Yes.
um,
Every culture is different. Yeah, for sure. I find that too, especially in on days where I'm teaching the same thing throughout the day. Just like the vibe and the conversation, is so different from one class to the next, and the things that one class gloms onto is completely different to what another class does. So that's definitely fun because it's not, so mundane, even though I'm teaching the same thing.
and I feel like we both have that feeling of like when a certain period comes in, you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
this is gonna be it. Like you already, and then someday, and
Mhm.
then the other periods are just like, all right, it's time to strap up because we
Yeah.
know. And do you
Yeah.
feel like you can realize that on the first day of school, like the identity of a certain class?
Well, my school is so small that we kind of have a set schedule, I feel like. And so I already kind of know what class it because they all just kind of go together, you know what I mean? So I kind of already know the class that I've been warned about, I should say, which is terrible to say.
Yeah, it happens.
But yeah, so I kind of already have an idea ahead of time. And because we are so small, I see the kids, and so I kind of already know them in sixth grade because there's only, 100 new kids to learn every year. So I kind of already, see them in the hallway, or I have, little interactions with them. And so I think that's helpful because then they already know me and they know my face, they know my name, and but yeah, I think yeah, you can tell the vibes pretty early for sure.
So in terms of size, are you 100 kids per grade?
Yeah, just about. Yeah. So I have all of seventh graders. So I can't remember the exact number, maybe like 102 right now, but we usually keep around 300 in the school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and mine is the opposite. We have about 350 per grade, and I feel like
Yeah.
there's pros and cons to that because I grew up in a small town and did my first couple years of teaching in a smaller environment, and I love that because everyone knew everyone. And now I walk around the halls and there's 1,000 kids in the school, and I don't know everybody, and
Yeah.
I don't necessarily love that, but I do like that I can meet new kids every day, and we have such a diverse school that I'm at that I'm learning about different nationalities, ethnicities,
Yeah,
and
that's beautiful.
cultural heritages that I
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily know otherwise. So
I do love that. And I will say my school is a magnet school, so we do pull from the whole district, which is nice because I mean, we are obviously in the Midwest, so we're not like crazy, we don't have like I would say all the experiences you probably have, especially being, like where how far away are you from like the coast? Like where are you in Florida? I don't even know.
I'm in St. Petersburg, so I'm right along the Gulf of Mexico. So it's about 20 minutes. So yeah, we've got the beach is right down the road, and that is very nice, and that attracts people from all over the
Yeah,
world.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nobody's really coming to Springfield like that. But we do have a good mix of our society, our city. So that's great because I think that it's valuable for all of the kids to get to know each other, and they're probably not going to go to the same high schools, all together, but at least they got that middle school experience to be able to get to know people from the other side of town. So yeah.
Yeah. And we taught for roughly 3 years before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
want to know what,
Thankful. I'm so thankful we didn't start that way because
yeah,
who knows? Yeah.
I want to know a little bit about your pandemic teaching experience and what that was like for you.
Yeah. Well, I was pregnant for, some of it. So that was an experience for sure. I think teaching hybrid and, we had I think it was just based off of the alphabet. Like a certain group would come in, and a certain group would come in the next day, so it was like every other day. And then I had some classes that were solely online. Sometimes I had kids online and in the classroom. So that was definitely an interesting experience. I was out of breath a lot in my mask, trying to run around in between every class, trying to like wipe off all the tables and the chairs and, spray everything and all of that. Yeah, it was definitely chaotic. Um, but yeah, I think we're still kind of seeing some of the the results of the chaos, to this day. But yeah.
Definitely. I feel like I told my kids the other day, I'm gonna officially feel old when I get a group of eighth graders who doesn't remember going to school during the pandemic. They were
Yeah.
too like when they were too young for it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like 9/11 where my kids now, they were born in like 2011, I think. So it's just like very strange. Yeah, the further that we get from some of these things. Yeah, it's weird because I was like, I was a sophomore or something when you were born, like that's really
Yeah.
weird to me. But yeah, I think they were 2011, 2012, so maybe a junior. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember before the pandemic hit, I would always ask my kids in my geography class, what is your 9/11 moment? What's the one moment throughout your life from a news perspective that you'll always remember where you were at? Like for
Yeah.
us being in second grade when 9/11 happened and being a very early core memory. And the kids could never really come up with a true answer. I remember they'd always be like, "Oh, when my dog died," and I was like, "No, like that's
Oh,
not what I'm
the
getting
whole
at here."
world. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there were a few things that they can mention, but now it's hands down it's just the pandemic where they were when they were told, "Oh, you're gonna go home for 2 weeks and then you'll come back," and that never happened.
Yeah,
So
that is so weird to think about that we just packed up and uh didn't go back. Yeah, it is very strange. Yeah, when I was pregnant, I was also coaching, so that was interesting too, to like be in the midst of, yeah,
mhm,
that kind
a
of
lot.
weirdness as well, because obviously those regulations change. And yeah, we like didn't switch sides during volleyball. We stuck on our side,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things like that. So, and the kids were in masks playing, which was really interesting. So more water breaks built in and all of that. But yeah, it was just, yeah, it's kind of weird because I've kind of put it out of my mind, I feel like, almost, in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many little things that I think back on and it just feels like a movie. Like for one, being that you would meet a kid with a mask
Mhm.
on, and they would meet you, and you wouldn't know what they actually looked like. And my theory is that no matter what, no matter how, like whatever about the kid, when they took that mask off, it just
It was
was not what you expected, and it was so strange. It was
you
like,
make up you make
whoa,
somebody's bottom half up in your mind. Yeah. And then it's like
yeah.
not yes, absolutely. That was a weird phenomenon now that I think about it.
I
Yeah.
remember taking my mask off for the first time at a teacher meeting, and a couple teachers were like, "Whoa, whoa," and I
That's
was like, "Am I that ugly?"
Does it not? Is that not what you were? Okay, like yeah, yeah. I wonder if I was prettier with half my face covered. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I need the rest of it, but maybe I don't. Maybe I was thriving in that time. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's so funny though because I forgot about that. Yeah, just making up the bottom half of someone's face, and it's definitely not that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what has been a rewarding moment for you in the classroom so far?
Um, I would say so. My school has become an AVID demonstration school, which AVID is advancement via individual determination, and it's all about college and career readiness and closing some opportunity gaps and things like that. And so it was a whole process, getting vetted for it and having people come in and kind of like dig into all of our data and make sure we're doing things with fidelity and all of that stuff. And we had like a final showcase to become validated as a demonstration school. And I was a big part of that team. So I think that is one that just in that validation process, our kids really stepped up, our AVID students, and really took a lot of ownership of the program and the showcase itself. And just hearing them talk about the skills that we're teaching and how they've been effective on them, you don't get to hear that a lot. So that was, yeah, I think that was my biggest one so far.
Cool. I hadn't heard the term avid before I moved to Florida, and it's very,
Yeah,
very big down here. So I didn't know if it was a regional thing or not.
I think it started off maybe in California, I think maybe in a primarily Hispanic community. So I think it started there and then it's kind of like grown from there. But yeah, yeah, and we really like it. Our district is now like everybody is an AVID school kind of thing, but we are as like a demonstration school. So people come to observe and kind of figure out what Avid is and stuff. So yeah.
The rewarding moment that I had is receiving an email earlier this school year from a student of mine who I had last year as an eighth grader who's now a freshman. And she wrote a paper in her ELA class about a time that had changed her life. And she said that it was being in my history class the year before. And it was a long essay about walking into my class for the first day and just, getting greeted with a big smile and how she learned how to become a more kind person. And that was the big thing that she had learned from me. And I thought she was absolutely hilarious, like dry sense of humor. I just loved her personality and would laugh like out loud in front of the kids. And she wrote in the paper that anytime I would laugh at her jokes, it made her day. And
Aw.
it was really cool because you
Yeah.
probably impact a lot more kids than you know, but for someone to actually put it in words
Yes.
and
And then
submit
reach
it,
out to you and say, hey, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it
Yeah,
was super cool.
I have a little drawer of when I was student teaching, I somebody gave me like an accordion folder or something. It was like, keep this. And it's like why it says why I teach on the front. And so anytime I get any handwritten thing or an email, I always have to put it in that little folder because you got to refer back sometimes.
Yeah, it is. In moments where you feel low, looking at
Yeah.
those things really brings you up. So, what's been a challenging moment for you?
Um, hmm. I would say finding my just some of the things that I struggled with as a student, I think I still struggle with as a teacher. Like I mentioned, I do have ADHD. And so sometimes I just feel where do I start, and sometimes when I am struggling with behaviors and things like that, I kind of get like, woo, and I shut down, almost like I'm just kind of like, okay, I need a moment, like I got to come back into myself. So yeah, just learning myself and learning like the routines I need to be in place and the things that I need in order to be successful. Um, I think like implementing those things actually has helped them as well. But yeah, I think that's my biggest struggle is just figuring my own self out more than, more than anything and what works for me because I'm not a type A. I don't think I'm a type B plus teacher, I would say.
Do you like to relate to the kids and tell them that you have ADHD, or is that something you keep to yourself?
Yeah, they all know.
Okay.
They all know for sure. Yes. I think that is one thing is just, I mean, obviously you have to keep some things to yourself, but I think they can tell when you're being authentic and, they appreciate that. I've even had kids be like, you guys know she can't really, like, I'm
She
like,
doesn't do well at this thing, guys.
you already know this. Like, it's right before lunch. She hasn't taken her booster. You gotta like, so that kind of thing. Yeah, it's just, yeah. I think that they appreciate it because they feel like, um, I'm not like, oh, you've made this up in your mind, or like, you can get past this. Like, yeah, you can get past it, but with certain tools. And I think that's yeah, yeah.
For me, the most challenging thing was I had one particular class period that was so challenging, and there were so many obstacles and so many kids that didn't work well with each other. And every day felt like I was gearing up for war to try to get them to learn. And it became demoralizing. I tried everything. I was calling parents every day, and I just couldn't get through to them. And there were maybe four kids out of the 23 in the class that wanted to learn. And man, Aaliyah, it was, I don't think about it anymore because I've gone on since then, but it was so tough, and every day I was thankful that I had my planning period after their period because I could
Yeah, to
just
take that breather. Yeah.
debrief and de-stress, and I'll just never forget it. If I come across in my teaching career a more challenging experience, I'd be very surprised. But, it's something that I'll just never forget, and I I feel for the teachers out there who struggle, and this was like second pandemic year, so that had a lot to do with it. But
Yeah, absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely, that reminds me of this crew that I had. And one of the challenges that I remember from that class is there was a lot of, I mean, they're very much meme culture and,
Mhm.
whatever the current YouTube is and stuff like that. But there was one that I Googled and it just, the things that I saw were very offensive, and I took it personally, and they knew that because I am very open, and I explained to them why I took it personally, and there was a couple boys just knew that and kind of just took that and ran with it and would like tell other students to say this thing to me and like it just became they would put it in their like projects, that kind of thing. And I yeah, I I brought it to the attention of my principal, but I don't think she fully understood, like where I was coming from. Um, but yeah, I forgot all about that. But yeah, that was I think that was probably the same year because it was post pandemic, like or like right around that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what's been a funny story that you've experienced?
Most recently, my class one kid goes, well, if I'm teaching the Constitution. So he's like, if you know everything or if you know all of this, then why don't you just run for president? And I'm like, well, that's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I'm just trying to make sure you guys understand. But then they were like, yeah. So then the class turns at a certain point, like when they all just get on this train. So then it's like, yeah. So you'll have like another, few years, and then like we'll be able to vote. And then like you're 30 now, so like you have to be 35. So you'll still have, and they're like mapping it out. And I'm just like, you guys, I don't think that I'm good. So yeah, they were kind of planning my campaign recently for president. So yeah, we'll see. We
Yeah.
we shall see. I
The
think that's probably the funniest part is when they randomly realize that I'm now 30. And they're like, "You're not 23." And I'm like,
yeah.
like, yeah.
Same thing.
Thank
I
you.
told
Thank you.
before I turned 30 this past June, shout out to the June babies. Uh,
Yeah.
um, I would never tell them my age until like the last day, but now that I've turned 30, I just kind of say it and I do get those
Yeah.
reactions like, "Whoa, you're not 26." And I'm like, "No, but I'm glad that you think I am because that means maybe I look a little bit younger."
Exactly. I'm like, oh, you guys aren't that close. You can't see the bags under my eyes, but they're there for sure. Yeah, no, I definitely will take that compliment whenever it comes because one day they're not going to be saying that anymore. They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
But at that age, 30 feels like so
So
old,
yeah,
but don't you still feel like you're 23?
I feel like I'm fairly youthful. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously being a parent can knock a few, energy points off of but I definitely don't feel like I'm geriatric like the way they react when I say it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like fall out of their chair. Yeah, but hey.
Yeah. The one of the funniest moments I've experienced in recent memory is my uncle had sent me a pair of what looked like Yeezy shoes, which they're totally knockoff, but they had Buffalo Bills logos on them. Shout out to the Bills who won their playoff game last night. And all the kids know, like I'm a rabid fan. And my principal busted in my classroom at the last period of the day, like unlocked the door, came in with the campus monitor, and called me out for wearing the shoes and was like, "What are those on
No.
your feet? Those are ridiculous." And the whole class stood up and just like was egging him on. And my face got so red. It was so because him and I had a great relationship, and he just busted in there and was busting me. And it was the
Hilarious.
funniest thing ever. I'll never forget that moment. It was so cool. Even though I was getting roasted for wearing these
Yeah,
like
yeah, you're getting torn up, but
knockoffs.
it's all good. Yeah.
So you've alluded to it a little bit, but I wanted to change gears and talk a little bit about motherhood. So
No.
could you tell me about your experience as a mother?
Yeah, it is life changing, obviously. It's very rewarding. I love my little stinky butt. She is 3 now. She'll be 4 in June. So she's another little June baby, a little Gemini. Yeah, she's taught me a lot about myself. I think that my patience has improved, which has actually helped me in the classroom, I would say, because, like I'm used to someone not listening to me, 30 times in a row, that type thing, and repeating myself and things like that. But I also just have, I kind of look at the kids differently too, because I'm like, you are someone's baby. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of put that into perspective for me more as well. Um, and makes me like, I don't know, just give more grace sometimes. And that can be a positive and a negative, it just depends on, some kids don't, they'll take that grace and yeah. But yeah, I don't know. She's just awesome. I just love her. She's very funny, very smart. Yeah, yeah.
Do you see yourself in your daughter?
For sure. Yes, she is blonde, number one. um and so like visually I see it, but not a lot of other people see it, you know what I mean? But I see, especially because my mom always tells me just like some of the things that she says, and just like her humor and just like her energy, my mom says, is very much like how mine was. And so I feel the need to like very much nurture that, and make her feel confident in her weirdness, I guess, in a way. Yeah.
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 So, what's it like dealing with the comments that sometimes are made by people, knowing that coming from a biracial aspect with you and your
Yeah.
daughter?
Yeah. I think that we will experience it more as she gets older. With other kids, especially, I think, because I have had students who have kind of the same makeup as her,
Mhm.
where one of her parents is mixed, one of her parents is white. And they are very white passing. I mean, and she is white passing. I mean, I can tell, but I don't know that the average person would, Uh, and I've seen some of the comments, and I've heard some of the comments from that age group, you know what I mean? And I'm nervous for how I'm going to react when those times come. But I think she, hopefully, being around all of her family, and getting to experience them and not being treated any differently, within her own family, like she'll have confidence in herself to like not let those things, affect her. And maybe by the time she's in middle school, there'll be so many mixes. I mean, I feel like there's more mixes even when we were younger,
Mhm.
now. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I
Mhm.
think I'm trying to I'm trying to like gauge how I want to. Yeah. At
Right.
the end of the day, she's got, a black grandfather. She's got black family, and I want her to not feel like she has to hide that or like not take pride in that, even though there's going to be some people who um, will discredit her, in that way. I don't know. But I mean, I'm her mother, so they better. I don't
You
know.
don't mess with Aaliyah.
Yeah. And she's got beautiful curly hair. I hope she keeps it, so at least she's got like a little piece of me, I feel like, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what's the best part about being a mom?
Well, lately, I would say just hearing her, like she'll wake up and be like, "Mommy, you're amazing," or she'll like randomly be like, "My mommy is beautiful," or something like that. And I'm just like, I think the most rewarding part is seeing her either treat her friends or her dolls or whatever the way I treat her, if that makes sense. Like, and I'm like, oh, like something that she'll say to one of her babies, like, you need to give your body some rest, or like you need to, things like that. And I'm just like, oh, because it's like she's modeling, like she's, I'm modeling, and she's taking that in, and that feels really good, because sometimes you feel like you're failing, or you feel like, am I doing the right things? But then seeing her be like so gentle makes me feel like I am. So that makes me happy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that just hit me. Like that is
My little stinky girl.
something that must be so rewarding to know that the values you're instilling in her are coming to fruition and you're
Yeah.
seeing just, all that. That's very, very
Yeah.
nice.
It makes me happy. Yeah.
What's one thing you did not expect in terms of raising a daughter, childbirth, or
Yeah.
anything along the last 3 or so years?
Yeah. I would say I didn't realize that it was going to take me so long to figure out who I am again. You know what I mean? And I think I'm still kind of figuring it out. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's always going to be a balance going forward of not putting everything into her. And focusing so much on her and focusing on myself and like what do I like to do and what am I, you know, interested in now and things like that. I feel like obviously physically you're like a completely different person. Like I feel like even just being in my like own skin, it took me I think a good 2 years to like feel normal. Um yeah, and even now still like I'll see old pictures of myself and I'm like, oh, that's me, you know, even though I don't think like other people probably wouldn't think I look that different, but to me I'm just like, oh my gosh, like that's a different person. I don't know. So I think that was the biggest thing is just reinventing myself post baby. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that about motherhood. I want to have children one day. I always said I would. I'm not sure when that will come or if it will come, but if it does, I think what you mentioned about, seeing those values instilled, I think would be just an amazing feeling.
It is. It definitely is. I think that, you know, don't get me wrong, she's 3 and you know, she's got a bit of a mouth which came from me, I'm sure. But yeah, just seeing her gentleness, yeah, I think is the biggest, yeah. And just the way that like if I lay my head on her, like she will like, you know, like she'll rub my head or she'll like things like that. I'm like, you're already so nurturing. Um, and I just hope she always like has that amount of love. Like, yeah, I hope she doesn't lose that. But yeah,
So, taking a trip down memory lane,
let's do it.
looking back at our time in college, what's one thing you miss about college?
Oh gosh, the freedom. Like I would say, yeah, just the I feel like, you know, that's obviously a time of self-discovery and things like that. And you have the freedom to be in self-discovery. And I feel like at 30 and as a mom and as a wife, and you know, like I feel like I'm in a place where I feel very established, but I still feel like I'm figuring a lot of stuff out. And I feel like almost like I'm giving myself less permission to do that now because I'm like, okay, Leah, like, you know, we're there, you know, we gotta, but I feel like back then it was just like, you know, I can, you know, I don't know, just the freedoms. I think I also do miss learning, you know, I started a master's program the fall before the pandemic. And so then I paused that and then I had a baby and then, you know, life and everything. So I'll probably go back eventually, but I do miss like learning something new. Um, and that, yeah, I miss that aspect for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the very first classes that I taught back in 2017, 18, those kids are now in college, and I keep up with some of them and seeing
Yeah.
what they're up to in college. It really is bringing me back, and I'm living vicariously through them to see these clubs and things that they're getting into and organizations and playing sports. And it's just really cool to pick their brain. I think I talked to a few of the boys the other day, and they said that they write so many papers in high school, didn't prepare them
Yeah.
for all the writing. And I like to write, thankfully, so it never really bothered me. But I remember, late nights up in Club
Yeah.
Milner, just trying to get those papers written and
Oh,
all
wait.
that.
Yeah, I don't like my writing process because I'm definitely somebody who pushes it to the very last minute, which is terrible because then if I got a good grade, then it was like, oh, that's okay. Cause you know, like I knew I could do it. I'll just
Yeah.
do that again the next time. But yeah, I would say, yeah, just the freedom of, yeah, this is your time in your life where you are getting to explore and figure yourself out. And I need to remember that that is the rest of my life. It wasn't just college. It just feels like it was more accepted maybe that time.
Does it feel like 8 years ago that we got done and we're ready to start our career?
8 years. No, not at all. I mean, like if I think back to all the years I've taught, I'm like, well, yeah, of course, like that's 8 years.
Uh,
But no, not at all. Not at all. And I liked our little cohort, you know, our little misfits. Yeah, it's fun to see what everybody else is up to, and where their lives have gone as well. Yeah, but no, it does not feel like 8 years ago because I don't feel like I'm old enough for that.
Yeah. It's ironic that we're recording today because I vividly remember on this exact day 8 years ago was the first day I ever set foot in a classroom. It was January of 2017, and I was subbing before like a maternity leave position had started, and it was inauguration day. And I remember, all the emotions and feelings of what was happening on that day. And then to think 8 years later, we're here
That's
and having this conversation. And it's ironic about the day that we're doing this,
that
and
is that
went
is
through two presidential terms, and now we're here. But um yeah, there's 22, 23-year-old teachers at my school, and I kind of look at them and I'm just like, wow,
wow.
I was you not too long ago. But
Yeah.
I don't know, time is relative.
I almost had a tinge of not jealousy, but when new teachers did start popping up, I was like, I'm not the baby of the school anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like I'm now like I know I know I've been in the same school since really I student taught. I student taught there, and then I started at another place in January, 2 weeks after we graduated. A lady had to leave in the middle of the year, so I filled in for her for the end of the year in eighth grade writing class.
Uh-huh.
And that was, whew, yeah, every day I closed my door and cried. Like it was rough for sure. Because I was like, when they first introduced me, they thought I was a new student, so that was love back in the day. Yeah, so that was great. But ever since then, I've been at my school, and so I have become kind of like a vet in a way. Um,
A rookie and a vet.
a rookie and a vet. Yeah, like I used to get called rookie. Like I remember my old assistant principal would always be like, "Rookie, you need to sign up for your 403B," or "Rookie, you need to like da da da," like stuff like that. And now I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm not anymore." Yeah, so that's weird. That's weird, but
At this point, they're gonna make a statue of you outside the school one day.
they need to. It's gonna be Lincoln and me.
Yeah. So I like to end the podcast with something called one thing on your mind. So what is one thing that you're into at the moment, or something you'd like to share?
Ooh, okay. So right now, like I said, I'm kind of in a moment of what do I enjoy? And so I think that I'm trying to do more art, that kind of thing. Like I've been painting, I've been drawing more. My husband's grandma's been teaching me to sew. So I've been trying to, I made a pair of pants. I'm going to show you. They're not like good, but they're like, I did make them though. So
Sorry.
that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Just little things like that. Just trying to just trying to center myself more and like spend more time kind of understanding like what I enjoy doing. Um, and I have to also accept I don't have to be like the best at it because I think sometimes when I try things and I'm not the best initially, I get discouraged. But I'm trying to, if I'm going to teach my students to, have some grit and push past those struggles, I kind of have to learn to do that too. So yeah, that's where I'm at
Cool.
right now.
Thank you for sharing. The one thing on my mind right now is I've been thinking about chewing and swallowing food because I had a near death experience at a restaurant 2 days ago, and I was ordered a chicken sandwich, just a regular Yucatan chicken sandwich, and just special kind of sauce. I bit into it, felt something kind of prickly, didn't think twice about it, went to swallow my food, and all of a sudden I realized it was a chicken bone, and it got jammed in my throat. I'm with four friends outside at like an outside restaurant, and I just like turn over, my face gets just ghostly white, and I start gag reflexing, and I felt like I was in a movie, Aaliyah. It was really scary, and they all looked at me, and my friend grabbed my back. He was ready to do the Heimlich maneuver, and as I'm gagging, it's trying to come up my throat, but it's just jammed in there, stuck. And then eventually I think I was breathing. I don't know. I blacked out, but I swallowed and I swallowed it down and I felt it go down my esophagus. And I just, for the rest of the meal, just sat here, didn't say a word, didn't touch my food. And the last,
I'm definitely not eating that chicken sandwich anymore. The heck?
no, I'm not doing that anymore. So I was just lucky that it turned out okay. But, I told my parents and my mom was just terrified. And
Oh my gosh.
my first experience like that, hopefully I don't have one again, because some people at the restaurant were like, tell him to put his hands up. Like no one stood up and made a big scene about it, but it
Oh my God.
was it was kind of frightening. And
Sorry, the people that should have made the big scene is the restaurant, and they should have paid for your meal, number one. Number, like, what?
yeah, it was rough, but I'm all right. And I just kind of wanted to say that in a timestamp, if we listen to this 30 years from now and be like, oh yeah, I remember I
That
almost
time
died.
I own. Oh my God. Wowzers. Yeah, that one, that would very much scare me. I think, yeah, that's something I think about with Nova too. Like I'm always very paranoid and I'm like, okay, how am I going to react in that moment if some things went down? It sounds like you did a good job though.
I stayed calm, so
Oh my
it's all
God.
good. But
Wow. Okay. Wow.
yeah.
Well,
So
I'm glad you're here.
on that note, thank you so much for joining today. This has been a blast,
Yeah,
and
thank you for having me.
I appreciate it.